And we're live, I think. This is ArtGainz, and this is ArtGainz Live number 8, and I'm here with Aaron Doudy, also known as RPGrizzly, to talk about, what came to mind just now was ancient aliens, but it should actually be Elohim, ancient giants, and Nephilim, and stuff like that. The reason I wanted to talk about this was because I'm writing a fantasy novel which sort of involves those things in a sort of fantasy context, and I think Aaron knows a bit more about this than I do. I just have some very broad, some very limited but broad knowledge about these topics, and hopefully Aaron can set me straight and possibly help me to figure out some plot points in my novel, and hopefully it'll be entertaining for anyone watching as well. All right.
Whew. There's a can of worms to open right off the bat. My gosh. But yeah, so I guess I could get right into it. Hi, another author over here, Weirdo Online. Make a bunch of videos. Kickstarter's link is in the description if you guys want to join up on that. Get in my current book that's up there. But yeah, Nephilim. How much do you know before we go on ArtGainz?
Actually, I just remembered we were going to do a bit of small talk before we got into the main topic.
So, I mean, yeah. Oh, you wanted to talk about little people like gnomes?
Not that kind of small
Not
talk.
that kind of small talk? Okay.
Oh. Well, I had written in my notes talk a little bit about my vineyard beforehand.
There you go. Ooh, yeah.
I like vineyards.
My vineyard is growing at a good clip. It's growing about, I don't know, the vines seem to be going about 2 inches every day or so. So I have to go out and tie the vines to their little bamboo sticks every once in a while. And they say it takes about 2 or 3 years for the vines to actually start growing grapes, but I have got a grand total of 3 grapes growing at the moment on my Sovereign Coronation vine. I have a whole bunch of different vines, and
Sovereign Core. I like that
I've
name.
got literally 3 grapes growing, so I'm going great guns.
There you go. Is this a eating grape or the port?
I've got I think 10 table grapes vines and 1 wine grape, because it is almost impossible to find wine grape varieties at my local nurseries. So when I went out to buy grapes, they just had table varieties. But hopefully I will get some more wine, some more wine vines at some point. But it might not be this year. It might have to be next year.
Toronto's a little too far from the Mediterranean, is it?
Yeah, I mean there are lots of wine growers in the Niagara area, so I think I have to go down there, and the nurseries there might have more of the wine grapes, I hope.
Would they have the French Canadian wine there?
Yeah.
The French wines?
Oh, the French champagne.
Wife's like smiling like this is a funny joke, right? And then, no, yeah,
I was being
totally
serious actually.
Yeah.
Like I was curious if.
Oh, by the way, everybody, we forgot to introduce her. This is
it's fine.
This is my wife, Miss Grizzly, Mrs. Grizzly. Katie.
Say hello, everyone.
Hello.
Oh man, you got to be careful now. You're admitting that you do all this stuff out in your garden and the country. Some of these stories and stuff we're going to be talking about are in Canada.
But that's a Alberta area, That's
like Alberta, wife says.
Texas of Canada.
Well, I am in not anywhere close to the wild outdoors, but I am sort of in the country, so not a lot of cryptids around, to my knowledge. At least not that I've heard of. Maybe some coyotes.
Yeah, it's funny you should say that. It's kind of off topic, but I have heard random rumors of certain dogman-like entities during Katrina coming into New Orleans. So maybe they're closer than you think.
Oh, I hope not. Hopefully the Christian influence of my ancestors will keep the land pure.
Perfect. Bless it.
For a while,
Process.
anyway.
Oh man, the side note with that, you'd be surprised the amount of people who think it's a good idea to leave out offerings to Bigfoot and stuff and think nothing
my
will ever go
goodness.
wrong. Yeah. No, I mean, we're going to tie that into the Nephilim and whatnot.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Why would you do that?
Because I don't know what possesses them, but it's an incredibly common thing. They think they're we'll give you a sacrifice, you leave us alone. Is the mentality with
what
some?
The Buddhists do, they have little houses for their things.
Yeah, others it's like,
Yeah.
oh, it's the forest spirit. I want to get in commune with the giant ape man.
Oh my goodness.
I blame the boomers and their hippie talk.
I mean, they just like any sort of not like what's that guy's name? The author of Communion. That have you seen that film?
I have not.
Never heard of it.
Anyway, it's supposedly a true story. But he writes about like being abducted by space aliens and stuff. And
Not the
anyway,
communion I was thinking of, but okay.
This is really dumb because I can't really remember what the author's name is, but anyway, he talks about how encountering these entities is very unpleasant, even if they do bring like wisdom. I'm like, dude, if they're making your hair stand on end, maybe you shouldn't be listening to them.
Funny enough, with the wisdom in our Nephilim talk, like this is when you're connecting things by accident. Like there's a lot of if we get into the aliens, we got to be careful, and that connects to Nephilim and all that. So should I start from square one, or are we familiar with the Book of Enoch or anything like that?
I know next to nothing about the Book of Enoch, which is ironic since I made it a plot point in some of my novels, but I figured it's not canonical, so in a certain sense, I don't really care what's in it, but I really should know more about what's in it if I'm going to write a novel that sort of involves it. So
just a wee bit.
Yeah,
I think I brought this up last time too. We're talking about the first book of Enoch. Second and third book of Enoch, those are just medieval creations that are tacked on top of it. Like, the books were famous, and you're like, ooh, here I go, writing a little something, and I'm going to slap Enoch's name on it, kind of thing.
Right.
We should also mention there are multiple Enochs in the Bible. There's one Enoch that's like a descendant of Nephilim and stuff. Not that Enoch. There's a different one.
Oh, okay.
The one that's in Genesis that's claimed to have never died is what the book is supposed to have been by. Now.
Oh, all right. That's what I thought.
Don't ask me. Yeah. Don't ask me if that's actually what happened, but Jesus Christ himself did reference the Book of Enoch. So did Jude, and like there's tie-ins to it all throughout the New Testament and all. But again, I mean, I could talk here all day about when it became non-canonical, and a lot of it just has to do with the fact that Thomas Aquinas, love the guy, named my son after him, but he just didn't like a certain group of people who thought the Book of Enoch was canonical, and that just kind of led to the Catholic Church axing it. Oh. And we wouldn't have even known about it if it wasn't for the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Ethiopian Church, who, they hear of all of us talking about canons and all that and go, hold my beer, and like, let's put everything in. It's pretty funny that way.
All right.
But on a positive note, it means we have all the literature because of it.
It's ironic, actually. Just yesterday, or just this weekend, I was listening to a debate between James White and some Catholic guy about what was it about? I don't know. It was something about the Roman Catholic Church, whether the Roman Catholic Church has authority or something. Anyway, they brought up the Catholic guy brought up the topic of the Book of Enoch to try to prove that there are extra biblical authorities or something like that to prove the validity of the Roman Catholic position. I was like, I've never heard that argument before.
Rather fascinating too, considering the Catholic Church, acts the Book of Enoch. But hey, it's one of those things. I'm not really negative on the original Bishop of Rome. I don't like how it all went down, but it's kind of funny, all these Catholic Protestant flame wars when they're literally hating each other for the same thing. Like, they both were churches that broke from churches. They both took out books of the Bible with questionable reasoning, and they both hate each other for the exact same things of corruption and raping and pillaging. Love it. You got to be an outsider about some things.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Oh man, but luckily with this one we don't have to be an outsider, because like, you know, all of the modern Christians and whatnot are going to take a very narrow view. So the Book of Enoch, basically, and we'll get to giants, everybody, don't worry, is if you remember the I should look. I didn't, for some reason I didn't think, because when you said red-headed giants, I thought we were just going to concentrate on Kandahar, but we're going like all the way. So
back to Ireland.
a little bit. Ireland, yes. You're jumping ahead, woman.
Okay.
Ireland is, I mean, there could be some people there right now, but they're nothing. They're like Neolithic, and well, I mean, they have their stories of giants too. I forget what they call them, but that's complicated, and we'll get all over the place if I'm not careful. And the Book of Enoch is basically an extrapolation of the old Genesis narrative of the pre-flood world, for most of it. A lot of people take issue with certain miracles in it, or it claims that Noah was born a very holy-looking child, kind of like Moses. Stuff like that, you know, whatever. Some things might have been changed over time. Who knows? We mostly know that the Book of Enoch is very old, though, because it was mixed in with the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Right.
Not all of the current canonical books were mixed in the Dead Sea Scrolls, which is an interesting situation, but we don't need to talk about that. I'm getting way into the weeds. So in it, you remember that whole part where it says the sons of God mixed with the daughters of man, and there were giants walking in the world, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I don't, you know, you'll have some people still try to say the narrative, oh, it was just Adam mixing with lesser people, which question where those lesser people came from. But again, it's pretty clear we're talking about sons of God who angel type beings who rebelled, and their seed created giants.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what the Nephilim essentially are. They're the descendants of what are referred to as watchers in the Book of Enoch and also in the Book of Daniel. So there's those connections filtered all throughout the Bible.
Okay.
Particularly, there's a really fascinating verse where it talks about how the watchers, it gets really weird, are sanctioned Nebuchadnezzar to live like a beast of the field and eat grass for like 7 years.
Right.
And and they declare by the watcher brings it out and then says, by the decree of the watchers, by their authority or something, in God's name, they do this. Really crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm getting a little over the place. Watcher entities in this context are also referred to in Daniel. We have the principalities. Ooh. If you remember, Paul brings this up. The principalities, your fight is not against flesh and blood, but against the principalities, the powers, and the darkness, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But then you get the image of this in Daniel. Again, we bring Daniel into this, where he's praying to God for like 28 days, was it? 27 days? 20-something days. And at the end of it, a big bad angel shows up. Everyone's falling to their face. Only he can see it. He's freaking out. And the angel tells him, right when you started praying 20-some days ago, I started to come to you. But the prince of Persia, it was Persia, not Babylon, right?
Yeah,
Persia.
Yep. Prince of Persia, yep.
Yeah, it stood against me, right? These are the watcher entities that rebelled in the Book of Enoch, and adding those clarifications, and then mixed with man.
Right.
Now, there are certain connections in other parts of the Bible that I wish I brought in. I highly recommend The Unseen Realm by the late Dr. Heiser. If you guys want to get in really big detail about this, my children are going absolutely crazy. Go get them away. But it's a very fascinating story. But the thing is, these stories about giants are all over the world. They're not limited. Dog, careful. My dog's getting caught up in the cords. To just the Bible. For example, a very interesting connection is actually to the Wendigo. You ever heard that one?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
some of the oldest Wendigo stories talk about how it's a cold giant, invisible giant that you can hear crashing through the woods, that you can see sometimes its eyes peeking out over the woods, and it would invade your dreams and turn you in, possess you, and slowly turn you into a cannibal freak.
Right.
You can see how that story kind of changed according to different tribes, and then the modern retelling with the antlers. My wife brainwashed me.
It is antlers.
It's not antlers, woman. Antlers. Oh. She did it. She got me. Anyway. Yes, I
got it live.
She was adopted. What can I say?
From Ukraine.
You don't know how hard it was to convince this woman that antlers was not the appropriate pronunciation. She did not believe me. She believed in, the stories about giants more than that, I tell you.
That's true.
And antlers.
Okay.
Gosh, let me know if I'm, talking too much. You want to slow me down or ask a question.
No, it's fine.
But particularly the interesting connection there is the book of Enoch, and there's some hints in the Bible at this as well, and some old Christian and Hebrew traditions, that demons are not fallen angels. What they are the dead spirits of fallen giants and mixed creatures
Right.
that can't go to, that can't go to heaven because their daddies are not God. They're whatever watcher entity that's referred to as gods in the Bible.
Uh-huh.
And so they can't go to heaven. Their judgment time hasn't come yet, so they can't go down below, if you know what I mean. So they're just stuck wandering.
Yeah, I think I remember reading about that in I think it was The City of God by St. Augustine. I think he writes about that in there.
Sounds about right. And so you can see the connection here that these Native Americans who had like the Canadian Aboriginal, I don't want to tie them to the Aboriginals of Australia. I don't know, whatever. Indigenous, that's probably what they like. Maybe. With no connection to the story at all, connect giants to demonic spirits possessing you and making you do crazy evil acts.
Mm-hmm.
It's an oddly prevalent and tying into cannibalism, because a big thing about these giants in the Bible and less in the Bible, you don't hear as many details, but in the book of Enoch and in all these stories is they eat humans, right? Fee, fi, fo, fum. I smell the blood of an Englishman. I'll grind his bread. Right? Even old English stories have this concept of the cannibalistic giant.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Ancient Greece had that with the Cyclops, was just a giant with one eye, if you think about it. It goes way ancient in a ton of different cultures, too. Southeast Asia has some versions of it.
All over their statue, all over the airport, the Suwana Bloom Airport in Bangkok.
Yeah, particularly tall, ghostly figures that are hideous, and
their faces are very mix of a lion and some kind of dragon.
Very cursed looking, shall we say?
Uh-huh.
It's interesting. We can connect that to further things if we get more into the woo stuff. Woo, woo,
woo, woo,
woo. For example, there's what's referred to in the modern era, but they would have just called some entity or ghost or freak or demon or jinn, shadow people in the modern era.
Uh-huh.
And it's basically shadowy, usually have glowing eyes, do freaky things, and a lot of times they're actually depicted as being very, very tall, like almost, they usually don't take on the shape of a person, but you kind of have that whoosh, smoky, and it's like 9 or 10 feet tall or whatever. And it has green eyes and stuff like that.
Uh-huh.
An interesting connection to the idea that dead giants became demons, right?
And they're just wandering.
They're wandering and trying to find a body that they can possess or what have you.
Uh-huh.
Now, I guess it's interesting you brought up the aliens earlier, because there's weird connections to aliens and what we might call hairy giants like Bigfoot, which we are talking about different things, right? You have Goliath and what was the guy? Og. Yes, what a name.
King of Bashan.
Yeah, the guy that Moses killed. Now, there's supposedly... Now, I'm really careful talking about this book because there's a lot of spiritual wumbo jumbo around it. So I don't like people just researching it because you might have a really bad time. It's called the Book of Giants, supposedly written by Og. Who knows? I just know when I looked it up, I had some crazy time and I had to stop for a while. It's one of those things you shouldn't be looking up unless you're like in a monastery surrounded by praying.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It's one of those things that invites old stuff in for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
And again, there's no way of knowing when these books came about exactly. We know they're very old, and that's about what you get. I believe the Book of Giants was in the Dead Sea Scrolls as well, so we at least know that the what was the exact term for them? But whether that era of Jew still had them and talked about these books together.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. But yeah, that's kind of how it is. If you want to get into really detail, I should probably post in my old blogs about this. But if we look at
that blog.
If I'm going to get all technical one, I might as well go a little crazy with this.
Yeah, go ahead.
In Genesis, right? There's a first commandment given to mankind before the 10 commandments, and it's in Genesis. It's right after man's made. God says, go into the world, be fruitful, multiply, and take dominion over the earth. So the command is take dominion over the earth. And the way to do it was through multiplying, right?
Uh-huh.
Spread over the face of the earth. Most people don't catch that the earth wasn't perfect. Only the Garden of Eden was. As evident by the fact that Adam and Eve are not kicked out of the earth. They're kicked out of the Garden of Eden, and they're not launched into space or into another realm or something.
Oh,
right? They're just
I never thought of that.
Yeah. Unseen Realm, man. You read that book. It's pretty crazy. So the rest of the world, for whatever reason, was a primordial. It was good, but it wasn't perfect. And you can kind of get that vibe. Like if you think about, if you go out on a pretty sunset, you're looking over beautiful mountainscapes and something, and you're just enjoying life and you're feeling the beauty of nature, and then you hear a snort of a grizzly behind you. Good feeling's gone, because you know what that grizzly's about to do to you.
Uh-huh.
Nature good, but there's an evil chaos inside it. Think blizzards that'll kill you, drowning, sharks that'll eat you, and you'll have all these people like, sharks actually don't do that often. No. You really shouldn't be looking up shipwrecks, my man, because they do that a lot. It's just most people don't survive to come back and say, oh, hey, this shark tried to eat me in a shipwreck.
Survivorship bias.
Yes, hardcore. Plus, there's a lot of weird things. Like they've come up with frequency. Like I forget. There's like this thing, transponder or whatever, that you see those shark guys like with the sharks kind of pushing them and whatnot. Some of that is technique. Some of that also is they've been developing stuff that makes the sharks calm down. Like I gotta look that up more.
Sonar or whatever.
Something like that. Some sort of wave, man. It's an energy wave. It's always these waves, man. Oh, don't get me started on the shark people in Hawaii culture. That's pretty funny. And actually attached to Nephilim and whatnot. Yeah, believe it or not, they have a story in Hawaii that's kind of similar to Atlantis. And which funny enough connects to the Nephilim. Yeah, but I'm getting a little ahead of myself. So
it's all Nephilim all the way down, man.
It's all of it, man.
All the way to the ocean.
It's crazy. But so God lays out how mankind's supposed to fulfill the commandment. What does the devil do then? Right? He hears this and he goes in and he attacks man so that they can't fulfill their command and take possession over the whole earth.
Uh-huh.
Now, there's a little of extrapolation there, but it's interesting how the devil does this, right? We're no longer capable of bringing the earth in. Like the concept was make the entire earth like the Garden of Eden. And you can see why, what are we? We're builders. We are warriors in a lot of ways, but we do it through building. We make stuff. We organize. We work together, and that's how we create civilization.
Uh-huh.
Right?
Oh, I think that makes sense.
Right. You have a lot of people wonder, like, why did God not give us more speed or more strength for will? Because brains, physics, and what our task was. We were supposed to do more than eat things, right? We were supposed to bring it all into the Garden of Eden.
Uh-huh.
So it wouldn't make sense to make us like a wolf because, well, we need to do more than what a wolf can do. And so you can view the giants as the watchers trying to create their own children to claim the earth. A little bit of extrapolation there, but you can kind of see right afterwards, the watchers in the book of Enoch go, we're going to do this great sin. Chicks are hot, but there's more to it than that, right?
Uh-huh.
And we're going to go down and touch. And what they say is they barter for wives rather than just taking them. I suspect, when you get into a lot of spiritual stuff, there's a lot of rules we don't completely understand.
Mhm.
Like to us, because we're beings that are physical and spiritual, those rules are not like physics, but to spirits, they seem to be like physics. So
Okay.
a vampire can't cross the threshold without being invited in. That kind of concept.
Okay.
So rather than just taking wives, they have to convince mankind to give them wives. And they do this by offering them knowledge. In the book of Enoch, it's one guy gets a bunch of metallurgy and learning how to make metals and crafts and all this other stuff. Another guy gets music and art. And another guy gets witchcraft, which oddly enough connects to Lilith and all kinds of stuff. But
Okay.
we'll be here all day.
Yep. We'll be here all day for that one.
And so the story kind of goes, and this connects to Babylon and what the Babylonians thought about the old world and Atlantis. The idea being that there was an old giant civilization that consumed the earth before the flood, basically ran it all. And that's why it was so evil and so disgusting that God had to destroy it, because these ravenous, crazy giants were ruling everything and going crazy like their evil daddies.
Okay.
And that's what in the book of Enoch, Enoch is summoned to God, he gets word from God to tell these giants the evil they've done. Not the giants, the watchers, God's proclamation that all their children are going to be wiped off the earth and they're going to be locked up in Sheol, which is a kind of hell type place.
Mm-hmm.
And, we can extrapolate that further where there's a fun Christian tradition that when Christ died for 3 days, he went down to Sheol to basically tell all those watchers that are locked up that they were screwed, and he won. Peace, and then left.
Oh.
I'm pretty entertained by that story.
All right.
Like coming up, yanking their change and saying, "You thought you got me, boy, but I won.
Ah.
I'll be back." Oh.
You ready for round 2?
Mm-hmm. But that story is a little not kosher enough for modern Christianity to handle.
Ah.
It doesn't quite fit their image of the only nice Jesus Christ, holy, forgiving everyone's everything, like the boomers want.
Ah. I see.
The world ends with them.
Right. The boomers want retirement in the sky, and if Jesus Christ is doing things like, going up to things that have been locked up for who knows how long, thousands and thousands of years, and letting them know that their children failed and they're going to burn in hell when he comes back. That kind of,
Yeah.
Tangents.
The original Day of the Pillow.
Oh, man. Good times. So, you may also ask, if the giants were all killed in the flood, why are there giants afterwards? Because you have Goliath, you have Og. What else? Oh, before we do that, I should mention, right? The idea being that a lot of these civilizations like Egypt actually built their civilizations on top of the bones of these old giant civilizations that were washed away.
Uh-huh.
Now, this one's really obvious with something like the Aztec Empire, because though they had some knowledge, they were like eating off the floor. They were very unhygienic. It wasn't a very intelligent culture.
Right. Uh-huh.
So how did they build this really complex crap when they were living? It kind of makes sense that they were degenerate descendants or slaves or just people who moved in, found the stuff and built on top of it, and then started sacrificing tons of, that's a bit of a conspiracy, but it's strange how these pyramids in the Americas are like lined up perfectly with the pyramids in Giza, but conspiracy is fun, and this is for literature anyway. So the idea being
Conspiracy.
Atlantis was like one big giant civilization that spanned the entire globe, was washed away because God was sick of all the violence and destruction, and a bunch of civilizations built on top of their bones. And then afterwards, more Watchers, because remember, the old Watchers who first rebelled are locked up. But we have a hint in Psalms 82 or 1. No, Psalms 82, I want to say, or was it 3? These are short Psalms. It was either 81 or 83, one of those Psalms.
All right.
Where it talks about how God goes to the assembly of the gods, and it refers to gods. Elohim. All right, so Elohim in the Bible is a term for God. It's a generic term. Baal was an Elohim, blah, blah, blah.
Celestial being, something like that?
Yeah. Basically, it was God. But it can be referring to, like, capital E, Elohim could be God. The big G, if you will. The OG, the man. Not the man, the thing. The dude, the I am, if you will. And in context, you have to figure this out. And moreover, Elohim is, just to confuse everyone all the more, is both plural and singular, kind of like sheep. So, I don't say sheep is, I say sheep.
No Elohims.
And you have to know if it's plural in context. So, in context, this is a plural form. So, God, capital E, goes to the assembly of the gods, lowercase e, Elohim, and then tells them, you all suck. You are ruling the nations poorly. You're all going to be punished for this. You're going to die like men. And so you are sons of gods. You're son of God. You're me, sons of me, right? So Psalms 82 is showing that God put another wave of Watchers in charge of the nations, and they fell from grace as well. So there's,
okay.
Yeah, that's after the flood. So that's why you have a whole nother brand of them coming. Now, if we also believe the Book of Giants, which I'm mixed on it, because any way you look at it, it's coming from the enemy. And it seems like that could be really embellished.
Yeah, I would imagine.
Aren't your...
I guess that's why your weird things happen when you try and read it.
Yeah. Okay. What was that? I didn't mean to talk over you.
No, I was just agreeing with you.
Yeah, demons are not your best source of information. Last I checked, they are known for lying and other dastardly deeds.
You don't say.
Yeah. But in that, Og at least claims that he survived the flood by riding on top of the ark and eating birds for 40 days.
Okay. Right.
I think it's still more likely that he was born afterwards to one of these Watchers that rebelled and was just trying to tie himself to that old stuff. Now, if you... man, I did not expect to get this in depth. Whoops. Sorry.
No, it's relates to what I was trying to write about. Actually, it's kind of bizarre how what you're saying is more ties into the novel I'm writing. So
synchronicity,
I guess, yeah.
That's a whole thing with people as well. You'd be surprised how much that kind of thing happens. Don't be. For example, now again, not trying to use evil as an example for everything, but they have a tendency to copy God.
Well, they're their inversion of what,
The guy who wrote Jekyll and Hyde, whose name completely eludes me right now.
Robert Louis Stevenson?
Right. There's this crazy story about him where he admitted that a gnome, a little person, inspired him with the story for Jekyll and Hyde.
Oh,
and
my goodness.
No, that sounds ridiculous at first. But the funny thing about that is, if you look at old elf, gnome, little people stories, they're as crazy and evil as the giants in these stories. Full of eating humans, stealing children, crazy stuff like that. They're not friendly little happy things.
Fairies, too.
Right. Fairy world, all this other stuff. And oddly enough, the fairy and the little people and whatnot have a lot more in common with modern UFO abductions than anything else.
Peter Pan is...
Yes, Peter Pan is a great example as well, though also other things.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
But Peter Pan is also more of a fictional story. But the point I was getting at is the little people are like the reverse of the giants.
Right.
If you think of,
they're little.
They went really big with the giants. Who's to say that a Watcher didn't try to go really small with the giants? and create something really spiritually powerful but minuscule.
What was the
Crazy.
purpose of them anyway? Just to
Right. So if you remember, giants and these things, and I would argue a lot of stuff like Bigfoot and Dogman and the stuff that's real, are the Watchers copying God.
right.
So God makes man. He says, "Go take possession of the earth. Here is, and do this by multiplying off across the face of the earth, and I give it all dominion over to you."
Mm-hmm.
They then trick God's, because what would that be? That'd be a colonist. Go and build civilization in a wilderness. Colonize. I like using that word because it angers a lot of people, but we'll say frontiersmen.
Okay.
Frontiersmen, right? So if you want the earth and you know God's going to take it, and you know the method he's going to take it, you know how to sabotage his plan. And so they go for the weak link in the chain, the frontiersmen, the colonists, us, knowing that we're more likely to sin. And then while God's dealing with that, they go down, right? And mixed with the fallen frontiersmen, the watchers do, and make their own children to take possession over the earth.
Okay.
You actually can see this. Jesus kind of refers to this, if I may be connecting more dots, in the parable of the tenants.
Yep.
Right. So you a vineyard, right? And something you can relate to.
Yeah.
And he sets tenants up to take charge of everything, and he leaves, and the tenants decide, okay, we want this vineyard now. And they stop sending him money, and they stop sending him his grapes and all that. And he says, what the heck's going on? So he sends a foreman over to figure out what's going on. They beat the crap out of him. They send him away. He sends his most trusted servant that beat the crap out of him. They send him away. And he finally sends his son in an attempt to get them to listen.
Mm-hmm.
And they kill him because they want to take the inheritance. Now, parables take on so many added
layers of meaning.
Yeah. And yes, this also refers to Israel abusing the prophets and then finally killing the Jesus Christ when he comes. But you notice something about this, right? These tenants already have, right? The Israelites already have possession over the land, right?
Uh-huh.
It's kind of strange that these tenants feel like they have to claim the land like the Watchers. It's also interesting that right after this story, these parables, that the Pharisees really want to kill him. They really feel called out.
Uh-huh.
Which is interesting because they should feel pretty comfortable about this because, our people in the past, they did do it, but we're not like them. So it's a little bit of a stretch, but if you think of it as that perspective of they're trying to claim the earth and keep it for their sons, that's what the giants and all these entities were all about, was to claim our inheritance and God's inheritance.
Okay.
And that's why they took us, they twisted us in a bunch of different ways, because they're trying to create their own versions that do stuff that they want. At least that's the theory. You can, I could probably get up to heaven and God will slap me around for it, and that's okay. I think too much on my own time.
Oh. All right. Well, I think that makes sense. It's not exactly the approach I was taking in my book, at least. In my book, I have the characters speculating about a lot of this sort of stuff, but they don't really know exactly what's going on any more than I do. So the characters, they're in my book, they're speculating about the origin of these magical creatures, and the conclusion they came to, the characters in my book come to, is that maybe these creatures came about as a result of ancient sorcerers trying to create bodies that could carry their souls after death, sort of the Philosopher's Stone. They could attach their souls to inanimate objects, but that's uncomfortable, so they wanted to create living objects which could carry their souls after death in an attempt to escape God's judgment.
this is, you know what's really crazy is I actually just ran into some UFO research that really sounds a lot like that.
Oh,
Like aliens doing that kind of thing. It's very fascinating, which again ties to theories about aliens just being demons in disguise.
uh-huh.
Like, and people get a little hung up on that sometimes. I don't mean to take over the conversation.
No,
I like. Did you have more to say, or before I go on a tangent?
no, no, it's pretty straightforward. I was guessing, wondering if that you could if that brought any thoughts to mind to you.
It did. Like a lot of people have this issue where they think demonic activity has to be only non-physical. These guys, for example, were like, "Oh, this doesn't fit our theory that the demons are the spirits of this and that." And well, I'm like, "Well, it is if they're possessing a body of some kind, or even a body was made for them to possess." Well, you know, it's there's no reason to believe that these weird watchers that fell, not the ones that are already locked up, but the ones that fell before, have stopped making freaks.
Mm-hmm.
Why should they stop? It's interesting how see, there was this moment that I like to go back to this. Aleister Crowley, the horrible man that he was,
Yep.
who ironically did a lot of this at Loch Ness. Ooh, weird place. One wonders about Nessie if he's more of a spiritual being than people think.
Oh yeah.
Or maybe biolab.
But in this, he communes with a demon that tells him that demons are going to be called something else in the very near future. And Aleister Crowley drew a picture of him, and it looks like an alien gray in a vampire outfit with like this thing in the background. Look, yeah. Which
I think I've seen
in my
movies
mind,
with that.
Make it mine.
Yeah, and then you think of what fairies were like in a lot of the ways they were described, and a lot of the ways they're still described, like dwarves and stuff described in Latin America. Like I grew up around that. They have some weird, crazy stories about dwarves in Latin America.
Uh-huh.
Is that what they're short?
They look a lot like these weird, freaky alien things.
Oh, okay.
Usually a little shorter. Or they might have the beards and whatnot, but they're very cannibalistic or have feet facing the wrong way. It's so you can't follow them properly.
Yeah, but freaky.
Wow.
Who knows about that? That was the one from Nicaragua. I don't know about. Like I can't. Because to explain that, I heard that from a guide on a volcano whose name I don't even remember.
Was his feet backwards?
No.
Okay.
So who knows, baby? Volcano gnomes. That sounds like a fun side character to fight. Volcano gnomes.
That's what you find.
Sounds like a Warhammer over the top. And then there were gnomes and volcanoes, yeah. Put the bandanas on their head, eh?
What is that? Are you trying to be Canadian now?
It's just this Warhammer in a nutshell. They just like, hey, here's this idea. We're just gonna slap more crap on it.
Oh, you mentioned something about Chinese dragons having something to do with the Elohim.
Remember?
See, this is a bit of a theory again, but some old stories about Chinese dragons have a lot to do with like you give them something, sometimes even in the old stories, human sacrifice, and they give you wisdom and knowledge and power. Kind of like these watchers coming down, these Elohim, and giving you something in exchange for something like a sacrifice or a wife or something like that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And you know, it's interesting because dragons in Western culture are firmly attached with evil in our minds. Appropriately, I might add. The dragons, of course, in Chinese culture are viewed more as not quite benevolent, or kind of in the middle, balanced.
Okay, yep.
Do you remember that pendant?
Yes. And it's interesting that they take on more of a snake form than a lizard form. But I think it also... you also have this stuff, I think I brought this up last time, where snakes in certain East Asian cultures are viewed as messengers of the gods. Which, you know, from the Christian perspective, what role did the devil take when he made mankind fall? That's right. He took on the form of a serpent.
Mm-hmm.
There's some really weird, crazy stories from like the 1800s of secrets type societies, the Mason type people interacting with their counterparts in Eastern Asian cultures, particularly around the Himalayas.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's our neighbors. Sorry. I got distracted. And some of these stories go as crazy as like they have two tongues and can speak two languages at the same time, like a snake split.
Okay.
Blah, blah. And Shangri-La is like their holy shitty that's underground, kind of like how Sheol in the Bible was supposed to be underground. Basically, there's these weird, crazy hints that just like how there's all these weird secret societies controlling the West, there's another flavor of that in the East, but they take a very different approach. They take the yin and yang approach, the balance of good and evil, the balance of the dark, what they wouldn't call good and evil, the the chaos energy and the non-chaos energy. But if you take it from a Christian perspective, that's like saying, okay, the Western crazy people worshiping demons and whatnot, their demons, their watchers think they can beat God. So they're constantly trying to start the apocalypse.
Right.
While the Eastern secret societies are all about maintaining the status quo forever. If they keep the world just good enough that the apocalypse, that Jesus, the setting doesn't happen and Christ doesn't come back, they keep their power forever.
Right. Okay.
Right? But if they allow it to become too good, they lose their power. So they're trying to strike a balance, a yin yang, and that's why they have the dot in the black and the dot in the white, right? Their concept is, right, this energy has a bit of that energy inside of it in the middle, blah, blah, blah. But I prefer the Christian perspective of looking at it and going, oh, so you just want to keep a balance between good and evil so that God never returns and you're never punished. It's like...
That's a gamma cop-out.
In a way, though, that Eastern perspective... that one scares me more because though it's less immediately destructive like COVID, right? Like the COVID crap they started, it's much more pernicious in its ability to maintain itself forever.
Oh yeah,
like
I
China.
can imagine. Yeah.
Right. You look at China and what it's been like that for God knows how long. In a way, maybe we should be happy that the devil's favorite butt boys are certain people with small hats who want to start the end of the world, because it would be really difficult. If they all had the same perspective of, we can't beat God, so let's just make sure the setting never gets to that point.
Okay.
Again, I don't know these things. There's just, when you're reading all these stories, you kind of get these concepts of what they believe. Again, I'm sure the Western style of freaks, your Mason types, whatever, have their own prophecies that make them think they could win. And I'm even sure there's some spiritual stuff that we're not told about that explain a lot about this stuff and why certain things think they can win. But I know they're going to lose, and I think these Eastern guys know it too, and they're a lot smarter.
Oh.
We'll see how much that lasts, though, because, God does say eventually they all lose it and try to start everything. Oof. We went all over the place. We didn't even talk about Kandahar yet. Do you want to talk about some of the more modern sightings of giants?
Sure. Yeah, that would be great. Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
I haven't really been contributing much, but I guess it's because I don't know anything. so please.
But I enjoy it. Rather than me talking to myself, it's great. I hope I haven't been talking over you too much.
No. It's all good.
I like your story concept too. It was good, especially if part of the story plot points is them discovering more things as they go. Oh, these are really hot in here.
I know. It's like, how many degrees is it here? It's gonna be like 116 again.
Whew. Now that's okay. So some modern sightings, tangents aside, because you brought up the red-headed giants. That's an interesting little thread to pull, because there's been some modern branching out where there's these big, massive. Like if you don't, if you read the Bible, Og was like, his bed was like 16 feet or something, so he was like 13 feet tall or something like that.
His bed was like 15.
Yeah, something. So he was,
12.
you know, you give or take,
Yeah,
he'd be a
12.
couple feet shorter than his bed. It makes sense. And the sightings have, okay, so a couple, I'm all over my place. So the Kandahar giant situation is a more popularized event, though it's getting older, so people are forgetting about it. But it started on Coast to Coast Radio, where a military pilot who wasn't a pilot anymore talked about a story where he got called in to pick up what essentially turned out to be a massive 13-foot tall red-headed giant out of Afghanistan who was already dead. And he saw a hand, had 6 fingers on it, saw the hair was red, looked pretty human, just massive. And they put like the pallet and everything was like 1,500 pounds or something crazy like that. And because he had to do the math to figure out how to fly the thing without crashing.
Right.
That led into another story done by A.Z. Marzullah. If you look up the Kandahar giant, you'll find him. He's a boomer guy, gray hair, but he does a lot of interesting work if you want more details. And that one talked about a story of a group of special forces. Doesn't really say what type of special forces, if I remember correctly. That he interviews a guy who claims that they were the guys who killed the giant. And it was a whole crazy story of the giant coming out of a cave, 13 feet tall, kills one of them with a spear, and then they like annihilate its face with excessive American gunpowder. So that was obviously while we were in Afghanistan. I forget what year they were claiming that, but the story started to come out a few years ago, like 2019, I want to say.
Okay.
I want to say it was, yeah. Now, there's been some follow-up investigations of that. Other operator type guys, especially saw things in their FLIR, so like heat stuff, or like they'd be looking at something, they think it was a couple guys in a blanket, like trying to stay warm because it's Afghanistan.
Right.
People think, oh, it's warm. It is really hot there, but it's also really cold in the high mountains.
Right.
People forget about it.
And
then it stands up and it's like a 13, 15 foot tall person. You have like a few stories of that coming in. And then one Australian
Wasn't there
guy.
one about a giant panther or something?
You know, there's a lot of stories about panthers. Ooh. How big are we talking, and in what region?
Well, I think it was in the Middle East somewhere. Some giant panther that was, I don't know, it's 12 feet tall or something. I can't really remember.
Ooh. There's a lot of, I've heard crazy stories about even like panther men in the United States. I know, crazy talk. But there is in the Bible a connection here of lion-headed men. Basically, if you go and you read the part about David's strongmen, it says when one of the strongmen killed the lion-headed men of Moab and then like threw him in a thing.
Oh, right. I think I remember something about that.
Now, funny thing too, I don't want to get too much on tangent because we're trying to stick to giants, but there's a really strong connection. So, for example, medieval manuscripts that study demonology and dealing with witches and whatnot, like Christians dealing with it. They depicted all the demons they were dealing with as like half man, half beast, like an owl man, like a Bigfoot type thing, like a dog man type thing,
right?
Like satyrs and that stuff. And there's like this connection to goats and satyrs in the Bible. I wish I wasn't branching out so much so I could have prepared that one, because that one's really interesting, like to the point where like the translation literally goes like, stop screwing with these goat men, you weirdos.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Again, just going back to the idea that the Watchers did a lot of weird stuff before God cut things off.
Right.
Kind of like what we're dealing with these days with all the biolabs doing their splicing and stuff.
Yeah.
They actually tried to make a law to make chimeras, which is what they call mixing human DNA with.
Uh-huh.
They tried to make a law outlawing that, and the Senate shot it down.
And it was very descriptive on point.
Why would they shoot that law down?
Oh, I mean, someone really wants to make some hybrids, man.
Yeah.
Particularly, these points were really specific in it too. It wasn't
Yeah.
just don't mix man and beast. It's a little weird. We don't want it. It was you're not allowed to make a hybrid with this amount of human DNA that can smile like a man.
Oh yeah.
Oddly enough,
I remember that.
Oddly enough, a lot of dogmen, a lot of their stories of like, weird werewolf-looking entities is they'll smile at people like a man and freak the crap out of them.
Uh-huh.
And like enjoy their fear and then leave. And
Right,
I always thought that was a little weird because like the description of the animal when I was, why should it not just take you? Why is it just freaking you out and leaving?
Uh-huh.
But again, if some of these things are genetic experiments that are smiling. But again, you also have to ask yourself, what scientist was like, you know what? I'm going to spend the next decade making this wolf learn to smile like a human.
That was the Joker.
That was really important.
Yeah.
He's really curing cancer with that
I don't
one.
know how I got these cigars. Okay.
Oh gosh. Huh. Right. I don't know. Oh, the follow-up stuff. So right. There was another guy with an Australian officer. He was running security, so he was sitting in a armored APC and just watching with the FLIR aim sight.
Uh-huh.
Discord. And he saw like a 15-foot giant like just amble itself by on the FLIR.
Oh.
And he was just like, and he like didn't want to tell anyone because it was like, well, they're gonna just say I'm insane.
Right, yeah.
So there's been these weird rumors about it. Now, interestingly enough, I'm getting I was researching some of this because you wanted to talk about it, and I found a couple of different things. So I found a guy who was an immigrant from Afghanistan talking about this stuff now,
Mm-hmm.
who's claimed that his dad's mom was a witch, and he witnessed her like sacrificing goats to things in caves.
Right, uh-huh.
Now, it's interesting. Again, I did another, the Muslim perspective is always a little different and interesting. So,
Just say
but
that.
it is, yeah. But in these stories, they actually do get really interesting. In this one, right, they wanted to poo-poo on the idea that any Muslim men would be willing to sacrifice goats to giants and the things. Oh, it's a normal ritual. They color the goats orange or whatever. It's blah, blah, blah. But again, there's a small problem with Islamic guys that they have a tendency to not want to admit when their own kind might be willing to do things that they wouldn't be happy with.
Right.
But because they have that perspective of like trying to say, oh, these Afghans would never do this because they're strict to that. Look, Sharia, the Afghans who took over, right? The guys, who are they? The Taliban, right?
Uh-huh.
Those guys are really strict. I don't think they're sacrificing goats. The guys in the deep mountains, though, the guys who aren't as strict in the Quran, who have ties to maybe even like ancient ties to Hinduism and stuff,
Right.
those guys could very well be sacrificing goats to giants.
That or other things.
Plus, it's they particularly get mad when they when you connect a lot of the modern Messianic magic to Islam. They don't like that at all.
Did you say Masonic or Masoretic?
Whichever one refers to the Masons.
They always say Messianic.
Is it Messianic or Masonic? I don't know.
I don't know how it's pronounced.
Okay, Antlier girl.
That's why I don't talk as much.
I write these things down usually. I don't talk about them as much as I should. Oh my gosh.
I'm sorry, my Discord.
Discord's so exciting. But they were tying this to a whole cult of the Thuggee cult, which is a funny thing to say. That's the old Hindu cult of that's the word thug comes from.
Right.
Seriously.
I'm familiar.
Yeah, and it was depicted in Indiana Jones and all that. It's funny.
So they call them thugs?
Yeah, they were. It's like THUGGE or GEE or something, Thuggee, and they like worship forget the name of the female deity or whatever. Blah blah blah. You have the usual people like trying to defend it, like, oh no, the Thuggee wasn't that bad. They were just, the British were just bad, so they were sending their ancestral spirits against them. And I'm like, you mean the spirits the demonic spirits they've been worshiping? Those things? Yeah. Thank you. Not saying the British were necessarily good in this situation, but ancestral spirits and all that. Witchcraft, all that kind of thing. I feel a little, my Christian roots say I'm okay with that burning a bit. But, oddly enough, there's a strange connection between CERN and the Thuggee cult.
Oh?
Dog fur in my mouth. And that cult did interact in Pakistan and the Afghani mountains. It's interesting to think about CERN possibly opening portals, and then they're connected to a certain Thuggee cult. Or Thuggee cult. I'm going to say Thuggee cult of Hinduism that was known for like trying to open portals and summoning demonic monsters and ancient weird Shiva type gods and stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then CERN names itself after that and starts doing their weird stuff.
Oh, okay.
And that's why I like studying from different perspectives, because I would have never thought about putting the Thuggee cult in on this at all. But the Muslims, because they were desperate to, try to say that no one in the Afghanistan hills would ever be a bad enough Muslim to ever sacrifice the giants, found this connection of this cult that worked in this area from the Hindu perspective. And I'm like, hats off. I would have never found that connection. You guys really had to bend over backwards to find it, but Whew. But those are probably the most modern sightings that have any like mainstream following. I have heard of other sightings, like of certain missionaries in Latin America, for example, seeing what was his name? It was on the Confessionals. I don't know if you look up that YouTube channel. Confessionals, you'll probably find it. Basically, a guy goes down to Latin America. They're having like intense prayer meeting over a village out in the middle of nowhere. He looks up and he sees this massive, like 15, 20 foot shadow man thing staring, like weaving back and forth in the trees, looking at them. And they start praying against it, and it reacts to them and eventually leaves. Like he could hear their prayers. Again, I can't give you lots of substantiation for everything. I've heard more stories from Dark Waters channel back in the day, for example. I think he's put that under a paywall now, but of special forces guys running into giants in the jungles of Panama. That's fun.
I think what got me thinking about the red-headed giants was I think it was Nerdrotic's channel. What's it called? That show, Forbidden Frontier. They were talking about. I think it's some Native American tribe or Middle American tribe. They have
Paiute and Navajo.
Yeah, they have stories about. There's a cave and.
Love something cave. Love rock cave. Love something cave.
And that their mythology involves their ancestors fighting a war against some red-headed giants, and then trapping the giants in the cave or something.
And then lighting the cave on fire.
Yeah.
So that one's been coming out a bit more. Missoula, the guy who had the original Kandahar story also has some direct connections to this one, where he interviews some Navajo elders who have become Christian now and are willing to talk about this stuff.
Right.
Oh, wow.
Though I saw on YouTube that there's more of them talking about it, which, not to disparage too many native tribes, but they do tend to throw out a lot of their traditions when they can get more money or booze. Not to be that guy, but I'll be that guy. It's not like the casino was in the ancient rites of the bull or the, firewalker. Wait, now I'm mixing things up.
What are you talking about?
I was trying to make a joke about Indian names and it kind of fell apart.
You were thinking Red Bull.
Red Bull. You know,
Some of your ego
man
powers.
riding panda can, his ancient creed didn't say a lot about casinos, and yet I see a lot of casinos in the current Native American zeitgeist.
Yeah.
But there was a time when the Navajo were very secretive about talking about this stuff. So it was a big deal when Missoula got this ex-elder to talk to them a little bit about it.
Uh-huh.
Now, the original story doesn't explicitly say red hair, but interesting, and I think it's the Love Something Cave. I was getting into it when I got distracted by some of the more modern stories. Some guys supposedly found a lot of archaeological artifacts there, including a mummy that was almost 7 feet tall and had red hair.
Right.
Now there's a lot of people who try to say that didn't happen. There's some stuff, there's this wonderful thing that whenever a big finding that's going to break the historical paradigm happens, the newspapers all talk about it, and then the Smithsonian moves in and nobody talks about it anymore.
Yeah,
and suddenly no one can find the artifacts.
Yeah.
It's a surprisingly
Yeah, the Smithsonian either dumps them in their vault or into the river.
Yeah. Who knows, right? All we know is this has happened a number of times, and then suddenly the historical artifacts are just poof.
Yep.
And then they try to claim, oh, that never actually happened, and they hope you can't read newspapers, or that they can suddenly to pretend that firsthand accounts don't matter.
Yeah. I remember,
unless they want it to matter, right? And then it matters.
Yeah, I remember there's I think it was I think I heard Sargon of Akkad talking about this a while ago. There was some newspaper reports of, I think it was a logging town, and the newspaper reports at the time said that it had to be abandoned because they kept getting attacked by an army of Bigfoots. And
that was Port Wintlock? Port something in Alaska. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like many people
yeah.
apparently witnessed this, but
it wasn't exactly a witness. So the original, that one has all sorts of stuff around it.
Oh.
Yeah, because the original story talks about like body parts were washing downstream, people were found dead, things were broken all the time, and eventually they all just left. Then there was a particular, because this was mostly like a Inuit, not quite Inuit tribe, but like one of those tribes.
Okay.
At this town. And then one elder claimed that it was the Bigfoots and whatnot. And then her daughter tried to claim later on that she was full of it and was just trying to keep white people off the land. Who knows who to believe? It's a he said, she said type of situation. And there's no one really around to collaborate one way or another. It does seem incredibly auspicious that this lady comes out with this now when all of her elders are dead or too dead to counter her. But what do I know? She obviously didn't have the balls to say anything while they were alive. But who knows? There is plenty of crazy stories of Bigfoots up there that it's not a surprising idea. You also had this issue with the lady with the counter story saying that her grandma was just trying to keep the white man away, with the fact that she had a very positive view of the old Sasquatchy, like the people who like to leave things out for them, that kind of thing.
Right.
Now, most Indian tribes, a lot of them have these stories about cannibalistic giants or Bigfoot type things that they killed off. Like, it's not just that one tribe, Navajo or that. Now, a lot of them have it all over the place. Trying to think of other tribes off the top of my head, but I'm running off a cliff because I've been bringing up all this stuff in my notes are a lot more focused beforehand. But a lot of different tribes, if it's not like a little people tribe that they've killed off, it's a giant tribe of some type killed off. And all over the place. It's really only more modern thinking that's like, oh, it's a helpful forest giant.
It's kind of funny.
Yeah.
That's a little off topic, but one of the random stories I've read was about a mermaid somewhere around the Colorado River.
Yeah, it's true. Man, I don't know if we have time to talk about mermaids and their connections to that kind of stuff either.
But that would have to be later.
Maybe
It's all
another time.
Yeah,
It's all connected, man. You talk about aliens, I'll bring it back to Nephilim. You watch.
All right.
Oh wait, I just did.
Earth, wind, and fire.
Oh man.
All right. Okay, I guess we should wrap it up. Thank you very much for sharing your knowledge about all this stuff.
Talking about my deep nerd knowledge of weird deep dives at night when I was going down rabbit holes. Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me on. It's good.
All right. I have the links to your stuff in the description, but you can go ahead and tell everyone about your Kickstarter if you want.
Oh, right. I talked about it a little bit in the beginning. I want to help the next generation learn to read. I was fired for reading War and Peace in front of my students as a principal, and I want to fight back as best I can. And since they're, not even going to let classics be read anymore, I'm trying to create books that will push younger minds towards the old classics. And for that end, I've made Tales from the Dead Sector, Gods of Science and Sin. It's written in kind of an older style, but it's about things that current generation people are dealing with and fighting. It's all about paladins and, from a fantastical perspective, I'm not suggesting, or am I, that there's lots of undead that the next generation are going to have to fight. But you get that.
All right. Well, yeah, so the links to that are in the description. And there's also links to my novel, The Screaming Void, which you can get on Amazon. So if you like Alien or John Carpenter's The Thing or that sort of stuff, you might enjoy my book, so check it out. And make sure to like and subscribe and all that jazz. And hopefully we'll be back again at some point with some topic to keep you
Very
entertained
descriptive, I like it.
and keep you
I'm on board.
company. So yeah, I am trying to awkwardly end the stream now.
I admit I'm letting you do it. It's kind of entertaining.
All
I'm
right,
liking
so
it.
let's see. I've got the wrong mouse in my hand. All right.
Oh no. So many
All right.
rights.
So
Some
have a
nice
good
different-
evening, and if you're in Canada, have a happy Canada Day, and later in the week have a happy America Day or whatever you call it, Independence Day.
Or for some, it's Cinco de Mayo, right? Yeah. Yeah.
One of those. Have, enjoy your fireworks and whatever family time you spend together, and check back again soon. Thanks again.
Later.